they assert they are pursuing this separation between the two is much less clear than it is supposed. So the security state on which your right to insist is also is not incompatible with the humanitarian state as we see it in situations of emergency. Second remark briefly on Melaham's point about NGOs. It's true that as Avishai was suggesting, we have what we could call a non-governmental government today as global reality. But I think we have to be maybe as critical, not in the sense of criticizing, but having critical thinking. If we say that the states may be driven by or acting with hypocrisy, we have to think that non-governmental organizations, at least in my experience, have also their part of naivety in the way they apprehend the world, which doesn't mean in any case that non-governmental organizations are only naive or that states are only critical. But I think we have to avoid to have a good side, which would be the NGOs, and the bad side, which would be the states, which is typically the rhetoric of many of these NGOs. And here, the distinction, very interesting distinction that you make between internal and external NGOs, I think it brings us to the question of sovereignty. I think when the internal or the non-governmental organization discard or criticize the view of the external NGOs, it's at least in part for reasons of sovereignty. This is our obligation to our people, and be careful with what you're telling us to do. So it's very interesting because it's sovereignty where we think in terms of human rights also. But I would also emphasize the fact that there is this kind of competition and rivalry, as you mentioned, but there's also a global circulation that goes much beyond position. In the case of trauma in Palestine, for example, it's not so much the French or international NGOs that brought the concept of trauma as an argument to present publicly the cause of the Palestinians, but it came initially from a Palestinian organization with a psychiatrist who had done a study in Britain, and so it came locally but through different ways. So there's a global circulation of concepts and tools, and there's also global networks. And just to finish on that, in South Africa, for example, the local organization Treatment Action Campaign was working very closely with Doctors Without Borders in their raising the question of drug access, for example. Thank you. There was also a question I've seen much more phrased properly, but you know, the question of I think was raised the sacrifice of democracy. Who has a duty to intervene? Just start with there are others who have duties. That was a question raised, and I want to panel any responses to that. There are two senses of intervening. One is military intervening, really in the territory, direct intervention, as in Somalia, or by striking from the air, as in Yugoslavia. And then there is boycott and other means, including making and shaming, namely pressure.
また切れました。国道14
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It's terrific to see friends who were here in former years. Welcome back, as well as colleagues here presently. I feel a bit guilty to have brought you in here on such a gorgeous day. It's like we've taken you out of the light of the sun and brought you back into the cave. I apologize, but this should be fun. I'm going to introduce myself and my colleague Angelos Haniotis. I said Angelos, sorry, Angelos Haniotis. He's very generous in letting people mash up his name. I apologize. Who are going to spend the next 2 hours with you talking about the relevance of antiquity to thinking about politics in the present. And so let me first tell you a little bit about Angelos before I begin. He joined us here at IAS this year, having come most immediately from All Souls in Oxford, where he had been since 2006, I want to say, is that right? 2006. Previously, he'd been at Heidelberg, where he had begun as an assistant professor and stayed there but for an interim at NYU, so that he was professor and chair of the Department of Ancient History from 1998 to 2006, serving as well while there as vice rector for international relations. And over the course of that time, distinguished in his appointments, he has published remarkably productively, very prodigiously, in all kinds of areas of ancient history, religion, economy, questions of war and power. He's also been a guiding force in the continued production of the important volumes in epigraphy in the field, and has consistently in his work combined the vigorous, most careful attention to the particularity of ancient historical experience with broad concern for questions of social organization and political form. So he'll share that expertise with us this afternoon. We're delighted to have him here at the Institute. He's a terrific appointment for the School of Historical Studies. I'm Danielle Allen. I'm the UPS Foundation professor in the School of Social Science. I joined the Institute in the 2007-2008 academic year. My primary areas are political philosophy and history and theory of democracy. So we'll be coming at questions of the relevance of antiquity to the present from two different ends of the question, basically. I'm going to begin. We're each going to speak for about half an hour and then join together in a conversation with all of you. So I'll go first and then Angelos after me. I was going to initiate the conversation by taking you into work I'm doing now on a very contemporary question, but for which work antiquity is helpful to me, so I wanted to essentially give you a case study. Here's one person trying to think about contemporary political questions and drawing on the resources of the past to do so. Is this useful or not? I think the framing question for any conversation about the relevance of antiquity to politics in the present is whether or not the use of antiquity, the belief that it's relevant, is a matter of accident or necessity. That is, do we continue to think about the Greeks and Romans simply because for centuries people have done so, and that it's an accident of tradition, or is there something intrinsic to the Greek and Roman experience and non-substitutable, such that when one draws on those resources, one is able to do work in thinking about politics that can't otherwise be done? That, I think, is the overarching question, and look forward to jumping into it with all of you. So, anonymity and civility, political discourse in the internet age. I've been recently trying to think about how to think about the public sphere in the context of the internet, and in order to do that, one has to begin by starting with the concept of the public sphere. So I want to give you just two examples of 20th century philosophers who have paid attention to that concept. Hannah Arendt, the term public signifies two closely interrelated, but not altogether identical phenomena. It means first that everything that appears in public can be seen and heard by everybody with the widest possible publicity. For us, appearance, something that is being seen and heard by others as well as by ourselves, constitutes reality. Compared with the reality which comes from being seen and heard, even the greatest forces of intimate life, the passions of the heart, the thoughts of the mind, the delights of the senses, lead an uncertain, shadowy kind of existence, unless when they are transformed, deprivatized, and individualized, as it were, into a shaped and public appearance. Second, the term public signifies the world itself, insofar as it is common to all of us and distinguished from our own private place in it. Such a common world can survive the coming and going of generations only to the extent that it appears in public. It is the people fame to the world which comes from and shines in centuries, whatever men may want to save from the natural ruin of time. Judith Habermas took up Arendt's definition of the public almost exactly, essentially paraphrasing it in Circular Transformation of the Public Sphere, though not acknowledging the fact that he was doing so. But he was at least straightforward enough about what he was doing that he identified Arendt's reliance on Greek categories. So he wrote, "We are dealing with categories of Greek origin, transmitted to us bearing a Roman stamp. In the fluid developed Greek city-state, the public life, Dibios Politikos, went on in the marketplace. But of course, this did not mean that it occurred necessarily only in this specific locale. The public sphere is constituted in discussion, or lexis, which could also assume the forms of consultation and the sitting in the court of law, as well as in common action, or praxis, be it the waging of war or competition in athletic games." So a scholar who wants to think about the public sphere in the contemporary context, when turning to the resources of philosophy, is immediately met with the resources of antiquity. We have an idea of the public sphere. Theoretically, that idea is Greek in its origin, but with a Roman stamp. And that idea focuses on speech in particular. So the public sphere is constituted in a particular kind of speech, too, in Habermas' writing in particular, goes on essentially to a notion of deliberation. So this is the speech of named individuals directly confronting each other, disagreeing, but working ultimately to consensus. So this is a picture from the U.S. Constitutional Convention, which you probably recognized. So it's nice you recognize this. I gave a similar lecture to undergraduates at USC, and none of them recognize this picture. But in our contemporary world, that picture of the public sphere, that picture of reasoned deliberation, seems not actually to capture our experience. This is a trivial example, but a blog post by the mother of an athlete who spent too much time reading the blogs about her son. Right? So I read with growing shock the mean-spirited opinions among this unnamed community. And she thought, well, maybe I'm just a mother and I'm a little too involved here, so perhaps I'm just getting one slice of the world of the internet. Maybe this doesn't really represent political or discourse generally now. So she looked at other kinds of blogs, and her review led her to the conclusion that all kinds of blogs are marked with this sort of incivil discourse. Political blogs, celebrity blogs, literary blogs, and even mommy blogs. So how, given the image of the public sphere that philosophers like Hannah Arendt and Jürgen Habermas give us, are we to think about the prevalence of incivil discourse in the contemporary world? Oops, wrong direction. Let me just expand the examples from the trivial to the more significant. You'll remember the email that circulated about Barack Obama in the last election, alleging that he is a Muslim who's hiding the fact that he's Muslim. Begin to be careful, be very, very careful. That had important consequences. It did, in fact, move poll numbers and move public opinion. So just to remind you of how numbers changed over time. From March 2009, just after the election, to the present, you can see the numbers who think that Obama is Muslim have gone up from 11% to 18%. But even at the point of, so March 2009, just after the inauguration, that 11% was a number that had already been moved up from about 5 or 6% the previous year. So the email circulated starting even before Obama had announced his run for the presidency, and it has had a significant effect on public opinion. So when then is forced to think, well, we can't just think of this civil discourse as trivial. It's moving numbers, opinion, in ways that move the other levers of our political system. This is a video from the protest after the Iranian Revolution, the death of Mehda Agha Sultan, I believe her name is, which was taken anonymously and circulated around the world. It helped inspire the protest in Iran against the regime and draw public attention globally to the events in Iran. So I present this as an example, a counterexample of elements of anonymous discourse circulating on the web now, which one has to think of as positive, essentially, functions as the discourse of a whistleblower. So anonymity is not straightforward. Like every other form of speech, it's good and bad, right? It can be true or false. It can emerge out of matters of principle, or it can be directed in an ad hominem way. So we still have the problem of, in our contemporary public sphere, how to think about the specificity of anonymity. And it's at this point that, again, I found ancient materials useful. So just as I began with the concept of the public sphere, which had ancient origins, and found that concept of the public sphere didn't really help me understand our current situation, I then found that it was by going back, actually, to the material out of which people had constructed that original notion of the public sphere, that I could begin to see some other features of a public sphere that we might want to draw attention to. So the particular ancient resource I turned back to was Sophocles' Antigone. So we'll talk about this in a second, but let me just remind everybody of the plot of the Antigone. I'm sure you generally know it, but at any rate, after the death of Oedipus, his two sons, Polynices and Eteocles, agreed to share rule in the city of Thebes. Each is supposed to take a turn for a year, but after a year, Eteocles is not willing to give up the throne, and so Polynices attacks the city. So I always like to use this as an example that we should hold up brotherly love as the model of what we need in politics, right? Because here are two brothers, the original example of sibling rivalry. They fight over their city and kill each other in the battle. And so then the new king of Thebes, Creon, who's their uncle, brother of Oedipus, issues a decree that the body of Polynices should be left unburied because he's been a traitor to the city. Creon's niece, Antigone, so daughter of Oedipus and sister of Eteocles and Polynices, decides to bury her brother anyway, defying Creon. And most people think of the play of Antigone as being about Antigone. They think about it as this effort to adhere to the law of the gods, which require burial, and to prioritize that law over the law of the city, Creon's edict that Polynices should not be buried. But in fact, I would argue that the play is really about Creon. He is the figure who undergoes a fundamental transformation over the course of the play. Antigone is unrelenting in her angry nature and character, and doesn't change up until the point of her death. But the turning point in the play is the moment when Creon has gone to release Antigone. Let me tell you a little bit what has happened just before he did that. People have been consistently arguing with him to say that he should change course, he's not doing the right thing. And he doesn't listen, as you can see here. He says to the guard, "Do you not know even now how much your voice sickens me?" And the guard says, "Is the pain in your ears or in your soul?" And in an exchange between Antigone and Creon too, Antigone tries to convince him again, "How could I have won a nobler glory than by giving burial to my own brother? Everybody here, just to say the chorus of elders, would admit that they approve if fear did not grip their tongues. But tyranny, blessed with so much else, has the power to do and say whatever it pleases. You alone," says Creon, "out of all these Thebans see it that way." And Antigone, "They do too, but for you they hold their tongues." So a distorted public sphere, right? Public sphere where speech is not functioning, the tyrant is not hearing. People keep making this argument to Creon. Finally, the prophet Tiresias does manage to convince him. Tiresias says, "Go, release Antigone and bury Polynices." So Creon finally dashes off, but unfortunately hasn't quite listened. He goes first to bury Polynices, and only then afterwards to release Antigone. And as a consequence, he arrives too late, just after she's hung herself, and just after Hymon has found her and has killed himself. So his not listening, even at that final moment, brings about the death of his son. And as he's approaching the cave, he hears Hymon's voice, and he says in the play, "Is that the voice of my son Hymon that I hear?" And the word for hear, there, Sidiani, is also the word for understand. It's the moment of recognition, the first time that Creon has recognized what he should have been hearing all along. And at that point, his son is dead, his wife is soon dead, he suffers through his downfall. So if one thinks of the play as being about Creon that way, then one also has to think about the play as being about speech and silence in a way that gives us a different picture of the public sphere. So let me say a little bit more about speech and silence and how we get a different picture of the public sphere from this. So Hymon, Creon's son, had said to him, "Dread of your glance forbids the ordinary citizen to speak such words as would offend your ear. But I can hear these murmurs in the dark, how the city moans for this girl, saying, no woman ever merited death less, none ever died so shamefully for deeds so glorious as hers. Such is the word, fatus, shrouded in darkness, that silently spreads." So I'm going to focus on that Greek word fatus for a moment. It means generally common talk or rumor. It can also mean a word from heaven or an oracular word. And it's like or linked to another word fame in the Greek, which becomes fama in the Latin, which means rumor, but can also mean an utterance prompted by the gods. And we get the word fame, of course, from fama. And just to underscore the point that these words are associated with divinity, this is obviously not an ancient, but sort of German image sculpture of the goddess Fama. So some of you probably recognize it. At any rate, but the concepts are associated with divinity on the negative side as well as on the positive side. So the opposite of pheme is blaspheme. Trying to forget the word blasphemy. It means both to speak profanely and to slander. And there it's worth remembering that the word diabolos, which means slanderer, also means devil, and it is the word from which we get devil. So a devil is ultimately a slanderer, somebody who passes along lies often anonymized, and so forth. So the point there is that we have a discursive field around this silent speech, come back to Creon's phrase, words shrouded in darkness that silently spread. And the discursive context is both positive and negative. So anonymous words can be the words of the gods, and in Greek tragedy generally, the laws of the gods are often described as being authorless. They endure without a sense of their origin in terms of time or in terms of author. But similarly, such talk without an author can be the talk of the devil, of a slanderer instead. So that brings us into a way of schematizing this additional kind of talk which helps structure the public sphere. It can be divine or diabolic. As divine or diabolic, I think the discursive field is indicating that this kind of speech has a special power. So there are some things about this type of speech which are familiar from other kinds of speech. The one has special access to truth and eternal verity, it's impartial. The diabolic speech is false and it's interested, it seeks advantage. But both somehow have a special kind of power which derives from their anonymity. So we're trying to figure out exactly what that power is. Again, the Antigone's metaphors. So it's not that Creon hasn't heard any of the other this kind of silent speech in the city, sort of the speech that has its face shrouded, this dark speech, this sort of speech that goes out revealing its name and its face. So he said, no, from the very first, certain men of the city were chafing at my edict and muttering against me, tossing their heads in secret, and they did not keep their necks duly under the yoke in submission to me. So he'd heard the
また切れてるな。but he misinterpreted it. And this is a good little piece of evidence that one of the things that goes on with anonymous speech is that it shifts cost from the speaker to the listener. The listener has to figure out who's speaking, what their motives are, what the reason is for their anonymity. And in doing so, in making all those interpretations, a listener can go badly wrong, as Creon goes here. Okay, but so the power of anonymous speech is in putting extra burdens on the listener. That's one source of its power. The other source of its power, I think, comes from its close connection to the world of intimacy. So read through the example in a second, but it's worth noting that anonymity and gossip are closely related to each other, of course, as social phenomena. And gossip is in representations, literary and artistic, associated with women as opposed to men. And so this is a good indicator, too, of the way in which anonymous speech can have a role in politics that has not been historically at the center of the frame in terms of our analysis of the public sphere. So insofar as women were not part of the public sphere until the 20th century, by and large, obviously major exceptions in the form of monarchs in different countries, but at any rate, insofar as women were by and large not part of the public sphere, the kind of speech associated with women, gossip, is also a kind of speech that moves around the margins of the public sphere. It moves in the private world mostly, but now and then can work its way into public life. And that's what we see happening in the Antigone. In fact, in the play that begins and ends with the gossip of women at the edges of the city. So again, helps us to rethink what the figure of the public sphere is doing. Remember, of course, that Antigone, the play begins when Antigone, our character, drags her sisters, Mamie, outside the city gates and says, now what is this new edict that they say the general has just decreed to all the city? Do you know anything? Have you heard? Or does it escape you that evils from our enemies are on the march against our friends? So Mamie answers that she hasn't heard anything, and so Antigone says, I knew it well, so I was trying to bring you outside the courtyard gates to this end, that you alone might hear. So there's a special link of intimacy established through this conversation in the private space, which is the space of gossip, essentially. And similarly, at the end of the play, Eurydice gets her news about Hymen's death, and it's in the same sort of way. People of Thebes, I heard your words as I was on my way to the gates to address divine Pallas with my prayers. At one and the same time, I was loosening the bolts of the gates to open it, and the sound of a low-jar house struck my ears. In terror, I sank back into the arms of my handmaids, and my senses fled. But repeat what your news was, for I shall hear it with ears that are no strangers to sorrow. So the second source of anonymity's power, I would argue, is that it blurs this line between the formal, the artificial line between private and public, and uses intimacy to establish trust that can have political consequences. I can say more about that, but I'll just leave it there. So now then, I'd like to suggest that as we're dissecting anonymous speech, we can add a specific account of its power to our list of what the divine version is and what the diabolic version is. Okay. So where does that get us? So then, the divine versions of the speech, of such speech, so the speech of a whistleblower, for example, or the speech of a chorus which is trying to tell Creon a truth that he will not hear, is the use of this special power of anonymity to rectify power imbalances, problematic power imbalances. Whereas in contrast, the diabolic version of such speech, the speech of a slanderer, is also using the power of anonymity, but for purposes of advantage or domination. So, in that regard, anonymous speech presents the same old problems of power that every other form of political activity presents. It can be used for good or ill, for power or aimed at achieving just balances of power, or power aimed at domination. So, Then we have to ask a question about how to think about the role of power in the public sphere. I'm not going to take us through Arendt again, but just ask that question. And this is a question which I think political theorists often formulate as a choice to whether to follow Plato in his story of the Gyges or James Madison in his story about government in life. So what's the ring of Gyges in the Republic? This is the ring that makes its holder invisible. And the idea is, once a person's invisible, they can do anything they want. They can rape and pillage and acquire power and steal everybody's gold and so forth, acquire everything they want in the way of material goods and satisfaction without ever being held accountable, without anybody knowing that they're doing it. And so then Socrates asks the question, well, what would stop somebody from doing this if they could do it, if they could misuse power in this way? And the answer that Socrates gives, and that Plato seems to endorse, is that people's internal character needs to be cultivated in such a way that is toward virtue, so that even if given this sort of freedom and temptation, they would not use it for the sake of domination, but would instead use it for the sake of good action in the world. James Madison argued, on the other hand, that it wasn't possible to cultivate virtue in this way throughout a citizenry, so that one needed government instead. Right? The full phrase is that if men were angels, no government would be necessary. So his argument was that one had to think about power, managing power, by focusing on the construction of institutions in order to make sure that nobody had the freedom to take advantage of each other in the sorts of ways that I gestured at with the phrase about diabolical uses of power. So there's been a very long argument in the history of political philosophy about which approach to take. My own argument in terms of thinking about anonymous speech is one for a merger of the two, both the argument that there are certain kinds of institutional forms that can help us deal with anonymity, but that we also need to think about cultivating various practices or habits of citizenship to support the just use of discourse in the public sphere. I'm not going to go through all of that now because